Hey everyone, this is Sumlock24, and before we go any further, I want to remind you to keep your phone vertical and click that full screen icon on the bottom right. Now, today I'm going to show you a deck that has a ton of potential, and I think will be a top tier deck whenever a little bit more support gets released. And let me show you the deck list. Give me 1 second.
Expect any mercy from me.
Alright, and let me check back to see what's in the card trader. I still need a couple of cards for a deck that I'm planning, but we'll see if it's available. Alright, so it's not here, but anyways, let's go ahead and get into the deck. The deck, like I said, it has a ton of potential to be a top tier deck. Let me go ahead and get into the deck list, and I'll go ahead and explain it a little bit after that. So I'm running 1 Reinforced Human Psychic Borg, 3 Overdrive Teleporters, 2 Destructotrons, 3 Serene Psychic Witch, 3 Wattsychic Fighters, 3 Supremacy Berries, 2 Enemy Controllers, and 3 Jar of Greeds. So basically what you want to do with this deck, it's an extremely aggressive deck if you get it to run correctly. And I am running Restart because I always want to start with a Serene Psychic Witch. And if you don't know what Serene Psychic Witch does, is when this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, so it can be destroyed by a card effect or by battle or whatever, you can banish 1 Psychic type monster with 2000 or less attack from your deck. During the next standby phase, if this card stays in the graveyard, special summon the monster banished by this card's effect. So basically you want to set it, and then you can set Jar of Greeds to try to bluff cards and maybe an enemy controller. And then whenever it gets destroyed, you can either summon a Destructotron, a Reinforced Human Psychic Borg, or a Wattsychic Fighter. And being able to get a free +1, it's huge in this game because it gives you free advantage. And that's what that card does, it gives you free advantage. And not only that, the reason that we're running the Jar of Greeds is because the deck's a little bit slow, but putting the Jars of Greeds helps it out a little bit. And it also makes it to where you can go ahead and bluff. And then, for example, let's say you can set like 2 Jar of Greeds and set a Serene Psychic Witch. Your opponent attacks the Witch, okay, and they set a ton of backrow. And then whenever they attack the Witch, you can special summon the Destructotron in the next standby phase. And Destructotron is completely insane in this deck. It can destroy a ton of backrow, especially if you set up a ton of backrows yourself and your opponent feels safe and they set a ton of backrows also. I know we don't have any type of heavy storm or anything, so a lot of people tend to set a ton of cards. And Destructotron punishes those players that just set a ton of cards. And another thing is, you can actually semi-lock your opponent if they don't have the cards that they need, and you summon a Wattsychic Fighter. You can set a card that would be relatively useless in that situation and put it on top of their deck, so it locks them to where they will lose almost a turn. And another thing is, Reinforced Human Psychic Borg is completely ridiculous. If you can somehow manage to protect this card, it becomes a huge monster, and I think I've got it to 3,000 so far. But I'm only running that 1 copy. I'm thinking of actually putting another copy of it, but I don't know what to take out. The Destructotrons are really good, and I think one of the things that the deck is missing is a Twister or a D-Spell, which I do need to find a way to add it. And I know the deck is a little bit expensive, but most of the cards you can farm or get it from the card trader. The only thing that you have to purchase is a Destructotrons and maybe a Reinforced Human Psychic Borg, which I think you really do need it because it becomes a monster in the late game. Let's go ahead and get into the replays, and then so you can see how the deck works. So this is the second or third time. No, it's the third time that I'm recording the video because my recorder crashed. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the first replay. And I think that the decks, like the weakness of it, or the anti-deck, or the deck that you used to be the psychic decks, are burn. And right now there's a ton of burn, and that's the only reason why I don't think it's like really high competitive because activating the psychic effects does take a ton of life points, and I did have to use up one of my SR tickets to get another Supremacy Berry for this deck. And I've been planning this deck since the Serene Psychic Witch got announced, and it was just barely yesterday that I was actually able to trade for the third one, so I can go ahead and do the deck. Alright, and there you saw how I didn't activate the Witch's effect, but I was able to tribute and then activate the Overdrive Teleporter, and then the berries give me the life all the way back. And before any of you start saying that I copied the deck or anything, I actually didn't look up any deck list or anything. I know that Dan does a lot of Psychic. I've seen one of the Psychic videos that he's posted. It didn't have any witches. I don't know if he already updated his Psychic deck, which is he's like the Psychic master. He's always doing Psychics. I try to do Psychics, but again, they use way too much life points, and I didn't have the Supremacy Berries, and I don't really like that field spell because the field spell takes it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If they destroy you, take a ton of damage. This replay was insane, and the replay is gonna be really fast, but this was actually a really long game, and I was thinking of all my moves and everything, and I was really trying to win against this deck. Because this is one of the top decks out there, and this is a Red Ice, and I think she opened up with an amazing hand, but you'll see the results. So I did get a Witch, and I did get a Jar of Greed, which is my favorite, one of my favorite opening hands, because you can do a ton of things with that hand, and the berry was just extra, and she said a ton of backrow Witch. She did use an insight to send the Red Ice and get a Spirit, so. That's kind of unfortunate for me because the Red Ice is a little bit faster than this deck, but this deck can come back from it. So the Witch, I sent out a Destructotron, I activated Jar of Greed to get another card, then I draw it into another Jar of Greed. The Witch effect activates, and I do the Supremacy Berry and then destroy the two back rows. And here, that's a misplay that he did. He should have activated the Vigilance. I don't know why he didn't. And I think that's what ended up costing him the game. So I removed the Psychic for Reinforced Human Psychic Borg, and I was able to get him to 2,000, and then I did get another Psychic with the Jar of Greed and then with the Destructotron. And here he champions Vigilance, which was the correct move to begin with, but that allowed me to get my my Borg to 25. And once you get a monster over 25 against Red Ice, it's super hard for them to come back. It's just something that they can't do unless they have like a what is it, an enemy controller or a mirror wall or something of that nature, and having Destructotron, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on him. Alright, so he gets another Spirit, so I do have to put my Destructotron in defense and my Witch in defense also, but I can attack over basically any Red Eyes that he manages to summon. And Psychic Witch again, get a Wattsychic Fighter, tribute that, and then activate the Borg's effect to bring it up to 3,000, and I just attack the game. So while I was playing that, it was insane. I think that was in Platinum 3, if I remember correctly. This next one against Odeon. But I do like the deck, but the thing is, it uses way too much life points, and if you don't get the berries, it can put you at a very bad place, and people can just OTK you from like out of nowhere because you're so low. Alright, so I did get a Witch, and I always want to start with Witch. That's why when we start, set Witch and set 2 Jar of Greeds. And being able to summon Destructotron, it's huge. It's to where you can gain a ton of advantage out of him. Here I just crash with Destructotron and then attack for 15. And I have been thinking about adding some mirror walls because the psychic monsters themselves aren't that strong, but they do swarm, which is a huge plus. But if your opponent summons a huge monster, sometimes you do have difficulty getting over it, especially if you don't have an enemy controller. And here I did get an enemy controller, and I managed to go ahead and just, I guess, swarm him, and was able to attack for game. Alright, the next one's against a Bandit Keith. Alright, so I go ahead and restart because I didn't get a witch, and like I said, you always want to start out with a witch. And with this deck, you always want to go first also. So I did get 2 berries and, and a witch. So tribute for the Overdrive Teleporter, activate effect to bring out another witch, and a Wattsychic Fighter. Activate Supremacy Barrier to bring my tech back, or my life points back. And then I figured I was playing against a Frog OTK, and so basically this hoping that he didn't have a double summons for him to OTK me, and I got lucky in this game because he didn't have it, and I was able to just attack for game. But if he would have had a Des Frog and a double summon, I think he would have gotten me. And then the last one against Yami Merrick. Alright, so I did get a witch, so I don't restart, and I set an enemy controller. And here I enemy controller because I didn't want the Ray to go ahead and attack me directly, so it wouldn't get removed. I tribute the witch for the Overdrive Teleporter, activate effect to get another witch and a Psychic Fighter, a Wattsychic Fighter. I put buried, get back life points, attack and attack. And then this was actually a really short game, and I think he knew he didn't have a way out, so he is using right back at you, and he does do rising energy, but that was the only thing he could have done, because I was going to go ahead and attack for game next turn. And he Karibos, but it's still game. It's a 20. I have 2 21 attack monsters. Alright, so that's it for the replays. Let me go ahead and show you the deck one more time, in case you missed something. The deck, like I said, it just needs a little bit more support in order for the deck to be a really high tier deck. Where it's at, it's a really good deck, but if you play against a burn deck, you're gonna lose like 90% of the time. And I did play a couple burns, and I did manage to get them, but I think that was just pure luck. I do highly recommend that you do get the cards. Even though the deck isn't a top meta deck, it will be a top meta deck whenever they start releasing more cards. So if you have the option, if you're able to get the cards, go ahead and get it, because this will be a top tier deck when it gets the support for it. So that's the deck. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below. And if you have a psychic deck, go ahead and if you have the time, let me know what you're playing differently, or if you have a list. I would love to see a list to see how it is that everybody else is playing it. And that's going to be it for today. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you dislike it, leave a dislike. And if you do enjoy my content, I would highly appreciate if you subscribed. And I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow.